All right, it's time for the Gator Country Roundtable. We're joined by Justin Wells, who's with us for this segment. And guys, let's talk about the status of things right now. Florida 9-0, 19-0, school record for winning streak. And yet there's so many Gator fans who just don't seem to appreciate it. And even some who want to critique the offense. What's going on here? Why aren't fans just rejoicing at this success of this football team? France?
Well, everybody's used to the Gators scoring a bazillion points, and let's face it, there are 5 million assistant coaches out there every single week critiquing every single thing they do, and if it's not perfect, then they get mad about it for some reason.
Yeah, Justin, it seems that's the way. Everybody has an answer about how to coach a football team, and it seems to me that if Gator fans roll the clock back a ways, about, say, 20 years, they'd really be appreciative of what they have right now.
Well, that's right, buddy. I really think, though, the criticisms from fans regarding the offense goes back to the days that Steve Spurrier first came to Gainesville. The fun and gun offense, chucking the ball around the field. Gator fans got accustomed to winning with a lot of offense. And then even the last 2 years, the Gators had great offenses under Urban Meyer. So I think not seeing that big play potential out of this offense is something that's really gnawing on a lot of fans.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that, Justin. I think that the deal is that Gator fans aren't happy to win by a point or 5, want to win by 30 or 40, and it's a different style of football today. But Urban Meyer says he doesn't care. He says 1 point is good enough for him, and Gator fans have got to get used to the fact that the most important stat, of course, is at the end of that time. All right, France, what is it? We don't have Dr. Lou here today, but let's talk with Dr. France. What is the problem with Gator fans and the style of football being played by these Gators?
I think there's 3 things, buddy. I think first off, opponents aren't taking many shots down the field. Opponents are playing it close to the vest, and that means that, number 2, they figure that if we don't take too many chances, maybe Florida will make mistakes and we can beat them that way. So Urban Meyer figures, well, let's make sure we don't beat ourselves. He just shuts it down. He gets the lead. He knows he's got a team that can hold the lead.
Yeah, and Justin, you can't really quantify the special teams play, which we're going to get to in just a second. One of the things Urban Meyer wants to do is plan to win, play great defense, play great special teams, don't turn it over. That doesn't translate necessarily to an exciting product on the field, but it does get the results.
Well, exactly, buddy. Here's one comparison I'd like to make. A few years ago in Nebraska, we saw Bill Callahan come in and try to change things up with a West Coast offense, and it didn't work. Fans didn't like it because it didn't work. Right now, this change in philosophy at Florida, playing more defense, field position, special teams, it is working, and fans should rejoice in the fact that, like you said, 9-0, 19-0, those are the 2 numbers that matter the most.
Let's look at the genealogy of this football team and this football coach. If you trace it back, it goes back to Ohio. And, of course, France and I know a lot of great football coaches came from Ohio. Urban Meyer actually was there with one of them, and Woody Hayes, naturally. He didn't actually coach for Woody Hayes. He coached for Earl Bruce. Woody Hayes was the godfather of 3 yards in the cloud of dust football, very conservative. And, of course, that whole Ohio genre was a little bit different. And I think it's cut from the cloth of Urban Meyer. What do you think?
Oh, I think there's no question about it. I think Florida's got a coach that wants to win ball games, and when he gets that lead, he will go conservative. As we call it, he goes Woody Hayes. But let's face it, Don Shula did that. You talked about it earlier. 1972, the Dolphins would get a lead at the halftime and just hand the ball off to Jim Kick, Mercury Morris, and Larry Zonka. Pound away. Same thing we're seeing right now.
Well, Justin, you weren't around there, but I covered the 72 team, and I can tell you France is absolutely right. I remember very well what happened. They get up, Bob Griese throw maybe 15 passes a game, maybe, and then they get up 14 or 17, and, of course, Larry Zonka would get the ball, or Mercury Morris, or whoever, and they'd run the ball the whole second half. And in some ways, people don't realize Steve Spurrier used a similar style. He ran the ball a lot the second half. But I know you weren't around back then, but it all spells victory when you have more points on the end than your opponent does.
That's right, buddy. I wasn't around for those great Ohio State teams and the Miami Dolphins teams that you're talking about, but I do recall 1992, Alabama. You know, a lot of fans want to compare this team, the Florida Gator team in 2009, to the 2006 team. I think it might compare more to that 1992 Alabama team. Gene Stallings, they won with defense. The forward pass really wasn't even a threat in that offense. They won a lot of close games, but they went undefeated. They got to the Sugar Bowl, and they whooped a #1 ranked Miami team that had been on a long winning streak, 34-13. And I think that's ultimately the goal. That's where this Florida team could be in a few weeks.
Yeah, special teams, very big part of this whole thing. And, of course, we know Urban Meyer's plan to win. Part of that is special teams, France. But it goes deep in some roots of the Southeastern Conference by another coach who, by the way, coached at Tennessee.
Bob Nealon's plan to win was, number one, you play great defense, and number two, you always win the kicking game. And let's face it, what are Urban Meyer's first two tenets of his plan to win? Play great defense, win the kicking game, and the Gators do that every week.
Of course, he didn't call it the plan to win there, Justin, but he called it Bob Nealon's 7 maxims on winning, and you can look up on the internet. It's pretty much the same thing, and Bob Nealon would go to the chalkboard, according to some of the guys I talked to, and write the same thing every week, as Urban Meyer does every week, plan to win the same 4 things. So it does seem to work. All right, guys, let's talk a little bit about this football team and the ability to stay focused for the final 3 games of the season. Of course, the championship game coming up in Atlanta, and they know they got the big day coming up in Atlanta the first weekend of December, but they got to take care of business here the next couple of weeks. Franz, can they do it?
Absolutely, buddy. This is a team that has managed to keep its focus the entire year, and you got to give Urban Meyer tremendous credit for this. He's gotten his guys to keep it at 1 game at a time. The most important game is this game. The most important play is the next play.
All right, what do you think, Justin? Do they take care of business?
Well, absolutely, buddy. There are a couple of, challenges still left on the schedule. That South Carolina game, Columbia, it's going to be a raucous atmosphere. The Gamecocks are going to break out some special camouflage uniforms or something. So there's going to be a big-time atmosphere in Columbia. But, they got a good chance against the Gamecocks. And then now with Christian Ponder out for the Florida game here in a few weeks, it looks like with a separated shoulder. I think the schedule's setting up very nicely for the Gators.
All right, guys, to wrap it up, we're going to give you our favorite moments of the year. And I'll start with my own. My favorite moment this year was Riley Cooper's one-handed catch against Georgia for a touchdown. Such a great play. I could watch that replay over and over. One of the classics I've seen in Florida football. France, what's yours?
Well, you know how I hate Georgia, so it has to be something from the Georgia game. Tim Tebow bursting up the middle, 23 yards to break Herschel Walker's all-time SEC rushing touchdowns record. And let's face it, that would have been a touchdown from 80 yards. He just went straight up the middle, and there was nobody there to catch him.
How about yours, Justin?
Well, buddy, you mentioned special teams play earlier. I got to stay with that Georgia game, the 56-yard field goal by Caleb Sturgis. I don't know if there's a better combination of kicker and punter right now in the country than Caleb Sturgis and Chaz Henry.
Yeah, you know what? Special teams players have really shined for Urban Meyer. 4 times this year they've been named SEC's top special teams player, so that's important. All right, guys, stay around. Franz and I will be back for our final thoughts right here on the Gator Country TV show.